Wow, I think that was pretty loud, huh?
Yeah, I
on
like
my
it.
on my end. Hello, everybody. We're back with Skiers on Baseball Live Sunday night edition. And before we get it started, I just want to take time out to, you know, tip our hat and a moment of silence. Let's watch this.
They'll be going for it against the Astros tonight. Going for 60. 70 and then 71. There's a high fly ball, left field, that ball to the wall, at the wall, and there goes another home run. And there goes a new all-time run scoring record by Ricky Henderson. Oh, doctor!
If you're going to do it with class. And that's the way to do it. Score yourself. Hit a home run. What a way. Slides in the home plate and surrounded by his teammates.
Well, Ricky didn't.
Godspeed, Ricky Henderson. I had to dig that one up. Who else has slid into home plate on an automatic home run? One of the best.
He may be the only one.
Yeah.
It's only the only shame of it is he didn't do it in the Oakland uniform. But hey, you know what? That's baseball. Still the all-time stolen base leader. Nobody's ever going to touch that. So
no way. People aren't even 1,000 close.
No.
People that are playing right now.
No. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, he was the first 40-40 guy, right?
I'm not positive on that. We're going to have to ask Rick Howard or Rick Brown on that one.
Yeah.
Rhys Hoskins. I mean, come on. We got a lot to talk about tonight because as you may have seen, there was a first baseman fire sale the last 48 hours. We had everybody from Naylor to Goldie to there was a few other
Christian
guys. What, Santana, Christian Walker. The question is, nobody cares about the one-dimensional Pete Alonso. This guy's a 40 to 50 home run hitter, but that's all he brings to the table. I don't know what's going to happen, but Rhys Hoskins, I would take him over Lamont Wade, but I think it's going to take too much to get him. And we got LD kind of sitting in the background, mystifying everyone. So we don't know.
Yeah. And Alonso, no coincidence. He's a BORAS guy. And
Who's not?
discovered, I looked at a list of Scott Boras's clients based on their, I don't know, importance, whatever you want to call it. I wasn't really clear on it, but Alonso is listed as like the fourth highest BORAS guy. And it's like, yeah, he hits a lot of home runs. He's won the home run derby back to back. But I mean, what else does he really give you? He gives you a lot of strikeouts. He gives you, middle of the road defense. And he's not the most physically fit dude. I'm not saying that if the Giants wanted to sign him to a year or something that, I wouldn't want him. Sure, I'd take him for a year, but he's a BORAS guy. So he's angling for, 4, 5, 6 years, probably a lot of money. And dudes that are built like that usually don't age well. So.
Yeah, Rick, what do you think? Would you want him? Here's the thing for me. For the Giants, I don't want Pete Alonso because he's just a better version of what we already have, which is guys that strike out a lot. We need more Luis Reyes type players that are going to hit the ball in the gaps. We talk about this all the time. The Giants don't need a 50 home run guy that nobody's going to protect and they'll just pitch around him or strike him out. I think Alonso's numbers decrease on the Giants because of the park and the batters that are around him right now. Now, if the Giants built their team and all they needed was a power bat because they already have a nucleus, then of course I'd bring in Pete Alonso, put him at DH, sure. But right now they need too many other pieces. And when I say too many other pieces, what I mean is Corbin Burns. Like, we're all sitting there hitting refresh because that is the make or break for the season for us. If we don't bring in Burns, Adames was great, but it's like, you needed Burns. Why didn't you get Burns? Like, I think Burns is going to turn into Chapman. I think we will get Burns, but it's not going to come as soon as we would have liked. And with that, because of the BORAS thing, and because of how baseball is with too big of an open window, I feel like we're missing out on pieces, because if we had gotten Burns already, now we can trade some of our other pitchers because we have Burns. Right now, we got to hold everyone until we get Burns.
Yep.
So
Yep.
if we don't get Burns till, let's say, a week before spring training, that kind of fucks up everything else as far as moves are going. So I just want, if we're going to get him, let's get him. You know, he wants to be here. We want him. What's the problem?
Yeah. And the interesting thing about Boras clients, specifically, I can name like Cody Bellinger, where both Bellinger and Boras wanted last year this big long-term deal for a hell of a lot of money, right? And they held out and they held out, and basically it goes right back down to like one team that's interested, like the Yankees. Nobody wants to touch that, and teams aren't going to bid against themselves. In other words, like if they know they're the only team in the race to get him, they're not going to, you know, get into a bidding war with themselves. So it just kind of sits that way. And I think that, you know, maybe the league is catching up with Boras a little bit and just say, you know, putting their foot down these teams and saying, I don't know about that, right?
Look who just showed up.
Mark the Shark.
Hey, it's our good buddy, Mark the Shark. Yes. We need you on here with us one of these days.
Yeah, we got to
get the reunion.
So, yeah, and, you know, as far as I'm concerned, if Willy Adames is the most exciting signing of this offseason, I'll take it. I'm happy with it, man. Willy Adames is really going to be a game changer for the Giants, you know. And it may not be readily apparent the first month of the season, but I think once the rhythm comes together with the guys they've got, that infield is just, the left side's just going to be a dead zone for any ball hit over there between him and Chapman. Boom, automatic outs, right? So the Burns thing is just, you know, I was thinking he was going to get signed by Friday, and now it's going to be after Christmas, and who knows, maybe after New Year's.
Well, the wife is saying he's gonna get signed tomorrow. She said he's signing before Christmas. We were laughing last night because we have this conversation every year, and the thing to us, I know there's a lot that goes into this that we don't have any idea about, but on paper, right? Isn't it like, I'm getting a star player, I want to get him before Christmas to sell jerseys for Christmas presents? Like this whole like after Christmas thing, that's another fail. I don't understand.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, that's really shortening the shopping window for that. There's going to be a run on the dugout store online, or the MLB Giants shop, right? It's like all of a sudden those jerseys are going to be flying out, but man, it's a lot of postage to pay if you want to overnight it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I can run down the street and get mine, but I think one of the things that, like, I wanted to touch on what you were talking about, because Adames, I don't want the lack of anything further or anything that happens further to shadow any of the Adames addition, because Adames was the number one gun that I wanted. We needed a shortstop, I think more so than a starting pitcher. And I didn't want Kim. I wanted Adames. And the more I've seen of Adames, because I don't get to see him that often as a Brewer, you know, it's out of our, we play them 6 times a year. So this guy's awesome. He brings the best energy. He's exactly what I want. He's a class act with a firecracker in his ass. So he's not going to be the Soto, like making people angry, but he's going to bring in this energy that's going to have people smiling and wanting to come to the ballpark. Yeah. And I think he's going to up Webb and Chapman. I was laughing because I was saying these guys are like almost personalities, right? And then it's like Adames might have them fall off the fence into a personality.
Yeah, he's almost got the Hunter Pence thing without the comedic relief, right? You know, it's kind of like Pence brought that positive energy, and he was always upbeat, and he's always like, we're gonna win, we're gonna win, we're gonna win, we're gonna do this, right? And Adames seems a lot like he's got that attitude. And like you said, boosting the pitchers, man, when pitchers are on the mound and they know the dudes backing them are solid, it just makes it easier for them to pitch, man. More confidence, more comfortable, more relaxed. And I think it's just all around a great thing, right? So yeah, and I mean, think about these power guys like Soto and Alonso and a bunch of other free agents you could list. The Giants championship teams weren't built around guys like that. They weren't. They were built around solid defense, solid spray hitters, guys, contact hitters, guys who knew how to get a bunt down, guys who knew how to hit a sacrifice fly, fundamental. I don't even like to call it small ball. It's not small ball. It's just basic baseball, you know? And I think that it kind of upsets the chemistry when you bring in a guy like Soto, you know? And like you said, Alonso's power, I mean, power don't play at Oracle unless you're, you know, Stanton, right? Who can hit a ball into the bay pretty much consistently. Yeah, great. Then the power plays. But otherwise, these guys are hitting fence skimmers in New York. They're not going to be hitting them out in San Francisco. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what actually goes down as far as Alonso, because I was thinking, you know, on paper it seems like why wouldn't the Mets keep him, right? Like they got Soto now. If they weren't going to keep Alonso, I would have thought they would have went after Christian Walker. I mean, obviously their owner has no shortage of ink in his pen when it comes to the checkbook. Right. So I'm thinking like, if you're going to lose Alonso, you get Walker. Like Walker's an upgrade to me because he actually is a great defender. He won the Golden Glove, and he's probably got a lot more athleticism with him too. So I like Walker a lot. I would have loved to have Walker as a Giant, but I don't know. We're going to have to see where Alonso goes. Is he going to be the next big gun, or is Burns going to be the next big gun, or, you know, who's going to be next to sign? I did see that two things hit me of real big interest. One is Arenado. The guy turned down a trade to the Astros. And to me, it just says, I only want to be a Dodger. Make a trade with the Dodgers. That's where I want to go. Now, do the Dodgers want Arenado? I don't know. But I don't want Arenado as a Dodger. No. So I hope that doesn't work out for them. And the other big gun that I've been talking about for at least a year that I really want is Vladdy. And supposedly him and the Blue Jays are so far apart on negotiations that he's probably going to test the free agency next year. And that'll be great.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be offering him an extension. I mean, he's going to command a lot of years and a lot of money. Getting back to the Arenado thing, the one thing that everybody is overlooking in this Arenado to the Dodgers deal is Freddie Freeman. Freddie Freeman's there. So Arenado is...
Well, Arenado can play third, no?
He can, but the thing is he's getting to a point in his career now where his defensive metrics and numbers are kind of dropping off a little bit. And so if you're going to replace a Max Muncy with, you know, Arenado, I mean, is it really that much of an upgrade? Sure it is, because Muncy sucks on defense, but it's not the kind of upgrade the Dodgers have been trying to get with every single guy they've signed over the last 5 or 6 years, right? I think Arenado would actually be better for the Giants than he would be for the Dodgers, but I think the Giants are on his no trade clause list.
I don't understand that, but I know his brother was I think his brother was in our farm for a while. Yeah. I guess he's an LA guy, which is fine. To be honest, I don't want anyone to come here that doesn't want to be here. Like it's just like move along, other fish in the sea. I think Lamont Wade is better than half of these first basemen, by the way. Like I was looking at the stats and I don't think Santana is any better than Wade. I mean, maybe Wade gets injured more, but if he's healthy, he's got a way better eye and on base percentage. His legs are dust. I know that, but I don't think Santana's burning the base paths either. And I'd say defensively, it's a coin flip. So as far as just like trading or spending extra money on first basemen that are marginally better doesn't make any sense. Yeah. I think you want to spend all your budget on Corbin Burns, because after Corbin Burns, we should talk about that, right? Who, if they don't get Corbin Burns, are they going to end up with? Is it Pineda? Is it Manaea? Is it Flaherty? Is it Buehler? Marcus Stroman could be available in a trade. To me, that's a drop from Corbin Burns, though. Yeah. I think those guys, if you want to call it A-B level, A is Burns. The rest of the guys I named are B at best.
Yeah. And even though, I mean, Burns is starting to decline now. His strikeout numbers were way down last year from any previous year. He's getting up there a little bit in age. Still, I don't think it's a liability if you're able to get the guy for 4 to 5 years, but anything over 5 years, it's going to be, last year or two are not going to be great. And then at what point, like, you're stuck with him, right? You give him an opt out, he's probably not going to get better money somewhere else. So he's going to stick around, right? I mean, so he is the best guy out there, I think. And I agree. I'd want him before anybody else. And there is a big drop off, Sasaki being the one wild card because we just don't know what he's going to be in the major leagues. He could be lights out, great. He's certainly, the price is right, but you never know. He could come out like Yamamoto and be a pile. So, everybody keeps talking about Yamamoto being the next great thing. I didn't see anything this year that made it seem like a stellar deal,
I don't think 12 years for any pitcher is going to be a good deal. I mean, that's going to go south. If it doesn't go south already, it's going to go south halfway through at the very least. Rocky's a whole different story, though. I need Roky if I can get him. If he wants at all to be in San Francisco, this is like getting Logan Webb before he hits the big time.
Right.
We don't have to pay him much. So there's no downside. It's all upside. He's young. He's got phenomenal talent, and he is going to be $6 million or something like that at the most, I think is the max on that. So here's where I'm scared as a Giants fan, because I've read this book every year, and it's like you get a little hopeful for this guy that's but you kind of like, I don't even know if this guy is worth it, but I believe the hype. So I want Yamamoto. I'm going to root for the Giants to get him. But in the back of my ear, all I can hear is the Dodgers are the front runners for him. But there's this like smoke and mirrors thing. And so you think like, oh, well, maybe he's not. And then he ends up going to the Dodgers, and you're just heartbroken. And you've spent all your offseason kind of putting all your chips on this thing that's like, and then you see him pitch and you're like, I mean,
yeah.
he's, I don't know. Is he that much better than anybody? I didn't think so. I saw him get, beat up and have some control problems. And then also it looked like I think he got burnt out towards the end of the year and he had to take some time off. So the acclimation from coming from Japan to United States, all that different stuff, seeing these big time players 1 through 9 that are a little more advanced than what they have in Japan. It's just it's a whole thing. So, and the language barrier, all that stuff too. So I don't know.
I think Yamamoto was just overhyped. I think that they made it sound like he was, the next unicorn after Ohtani. And so when it sounds like that and everybody's all frothing at the mouth, and then the guy comes out and he's less than expectation, then it's kind of weird. You think like, why did they drop the money? So I see George commented here about, Burns, definitely is a priority. I think Posey's wide awake on that. I think he's been wheeling and dealing. I heard that he caught a flight down to LA the other day, looking to talk with Boras and Burns about coming to San Francisco. As far as Josh Naylor's concerned, I am so glad the Giants didn't get him. I mean, did you see his postseason, George? Jesus. I mean, he was awful. And it's just, the guy's out of shape, man. He's got no range at first base. I mean, you want to get a guy like that as a designated hitter because you're desperate, great. But he's not. I like you were saying, Schmitty, I mean, Wade is serviceable another season at first base. His defense is good. It really just boils down to the health of his legs. He can hit. It's a no-brainer to keep him if you can't get the right guy for the right price for 1 year.
Yeah, I'd agree. The thing I do see what George is saying is something that I've been looking at for a while now, which is both for starting pitching and for the bats. We seem a little light with the lefties. Yep. I think especially If Eldridge isn't ready, you know, and Lamont gets hurt or something, we got the whole infield is going to be right-handed, I believe. If you got Chapman, Adames, Fitzgerald, and then Wade would be the one lefty at first base. Catcher, he can bat lefty. I don't know if he's going to continue to be a switch hitter or just figure out one is better than the other. And then in the outfield, Lee is left, Ramos right, and then if Yaz is our starter, then we have a lefty, and then who's going to be DH, you know. So I think the outfield and the DH hasn't been officially figured out yet, and that's probably because they are still wondering if there's going to be additions. But like, I don't know, Gerard seemed pretty decent to me. He's not top shelf, but he wasn't bottom shelf. And you know, as friends of Grant McCrae over here at Skaters on Baseball, we'd love to see him go to right field and have Ramos DH, and then we would have like an insane outfield where there would just be all Gold Glove. Like, oh man, that would be crazy if you had like Yaz in right, McCrae in left, and Jung-Hoo Lee in center. I mean, I don't see a better defensive outfield than that in baseball. Yeah. And that's all going to just rely, obviously, on what McCrae does in preparation with the bat. And we've got Damon Minor coming in. We've got a whole new strategy, hopefully, offensively with Buster in command, Farhan gone. Maybe there's going to be more emphasis on bunting and just hitting the ball and trying to beat out base hits and all that kind of thing. We'll have to see where that goes. I do know that McCrae has a huge strikeout rate, so I understand where people are concerned. But I watched that guy play defense, and if I didn't need so much offense like the Giants clearly do, I'd plug that guy in the outfield immediately. You know, if I had 8 solid bats already, I would, you know, Adames at short, usually our shortstop doesn't have a good bat, but we do have a good bat at shortstop, so you can kind of like, you know, exchange those two. I just love McCrae. He brings the flavor too. I like his attitude, and he wants to play all the time, and he has his goals. He wants to, you know, he's talking about stealing 60 bags and stuff. I'm like, you're just feeding me, man. That's all I want to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the Ramos DH idea is kind of intriguing. You know, I want to see a little more of Encarnacion just to see. I mean, big dude, he's got some pop, but he really didn't play that much. From what I did see, his at-bats were way better than Soler's this year. You know, small sample size, but I mean, Jorge Soler was terrible, and he struck out at a tremendous rate. And Encarnacion at least was, you know, making contact, putting the ball in play. So that's interesting. Ramos, maybe Encarnacion as a DH, and really like the outfield. I'm not really overly concerned that the Giants need to go out and get another outfielder. I think they've got enough depth with Matos. You know, you got him there. McCrae's potentially going to be there if he can get his strikeout rate down. Yaz they brought back, and then, you know, obviously Jung-Hoo Lee's back, and Ramos, if he's playing the field, then he's out there too. So it's really about that starting arm, you know, and the first base spot if they really need to plug that hole. I just want to see how this roster gets hashed out in spring training and who ends up, you know, opening day on the bench there to play.
Right. And that's going to be interesting because Casey Schmitt, as of right now, is probably in the mix, but do they bring in I think Buster's not done. Whatever happens, I don't think he's done. You know, I don't think it's just Adames and then, well, we tried and we kicked tires, but this is what we're doing. I think for sure there will be some more. And I don't know if it's an infielder, a DH, an outfielder, some bullpen help, hopefully a starting pitcher, I think should be number one. But yeah, George, I got to disagree with you on Wade sucks, though. I think that he had a tough go with his injuries, but I think he was number 2 to Ohtani for a run at on base percentage or something, you know, like he actually has a great eye. He takes a lot of pitches. Melvin was even talking about not having Jung-Hoo Lee lead off. He wanted Wade to lead off because of how many pitches he let the team see. You know, that's so important for these guys that follow him. If he can get on base, he's not fast. He doesn't have good wheels. We know that. That's where I get a little concerned on leadoff guys. I want the traditional guy that gets on first and he's at second already,
Right,
you know,
right.
and then the next guy can hit him in with a base hit to the outfield. I know the Giants aren't notorious for doing that, but that's where we're striving towards, right?
Yeah. And Wade's batting average, his on base and his walk rate until his knees went bad this year, he was off the charts. If he had had more at bats, if they hadn't been platooning first base, he would have been leading the National League in all those categories. You know, his numbers were better than everybody else. It just, he didn't have the qualifying at bats. So like, I get bummed when people get down on Wade because I think he's been really strong for the Giants. In light of the fact that they haven't really had a true traditional first base type guy. And I mean, people will say, oh yeah, Wilmer Flores is a guy. Wilmer Flores is just kind of past the line now. It's really, what do you do? You know?
To me, Wilmer and Wade are almost the same type of guy with the opposite bat, right? It's like Wade's a left-handed, Wilmer. They just both kind of have bad knees and they're not good running, but Wilmer's had some really clutch hits for us when he's been healthy. Like he's one of the guys that you really did want up with 2 outs and a man at second or third, because a lot of times he would come through and he didn't get his stats at the end of the year when they were up by 20 or down by 20, like a lot of people do. I see that happen all the time. It drives me crazy. Like Yaz last year, he had like almost 20 home runs, or maybe he did it 20 homes, but they were all when it didn't matter. I watched him strike out so many times and pop up so many times when it really mattered. Yeah. And I love Yaz as a defender. I have never been sold on him offensively. He's had a couple moments. I know he's had a walk-off here or there, but like, man, I see him really, I feel like he's kind of got the Dave Kingman approach where he's just all or nothing. He wants that home run, or he strikes out or pops up. Those are his 3 options. And we need more than that. We need somebody that's going to just be, you know, that line drive into Triples Alley where you can just run. Yeah. So I don't know. George is pretty active on the boards tonight. Good to have you in here, man. I like seeing this. I've been reading a lot about this idea of Spencer Steer, and I don't know what it would take to trade for him, but I'm all in. If they could get Spencer Steer, I think he's better than a lot of the previous names we mentioned that already got moved. The Reds have some talented guys that just like are under radar. Sometime we're gonna have to get Curtis back on the show. He's our big Reds fan. We all know Ellie De La Cruz, but there's some guys like was it a Matt McClain or whatever? There's some of those guys are like they're hurt a lot or something, but like they have a lot of potential. So I think Steer would be great as a Giant. I'm all in on that.
Yeah, I think a lot of the Reds really great players get overlooked because the Reds just tanked in the late part of the season, and so nobody's really even talking about the Reds. So yeah, interesting point, Cole. Alonso doesn't make any sense to me, and that makes it make even less sense with Bryce Eldridge, if Bryce Eldridge is the real deal like everybody says he is. So we will see.
The next question he has is where I've been on my early morning walks when I am doing my best thinking because I just had my first sip of coffee. I'm really wondering, and I'm scared because I've been a Giants fan my whole life, so I've seen what happens. I try to be an optimist, but I also need to be a realist. And it's a great point that Fitzgerald had a small sample size of some great things, but that does not mean, especially with the sophomore slump that tends to hit a lot of people, we can't pencil Fitzgerald in for like, yep, he's our guy. Like he's not just automatically in my book. And even to some degree, Ramos like hasn't fully been, you know, like this guy that's always been playing and we can count on him. I think Ramos is a lot more probably dependable than Fitzgerald, but I saw like towards the end, Fitzgerald started to strike out a bunch, and his home runs kind of. So I don't know if the book got out on him and people figured out holes. See, this is something that no one puts into the equation. Is like when somebody hasn't been seen a lot, no one knows how to pitch them, so they get the advantage in some ways. But then after a while, like it happened to Casey Schmitty, he was on fire, and then people are like, oh, he can't hit the the slider or whatever, the ball that cuts away.
Anything low and away was just, he was getting burned. So, and I mean, they do so much study on guys now that they find any little hole to exploit, right? So like, he's kind of exploiting himself, but I was going to use Casey Schmidt as a perfect example of like a guy where the potential's there and that you can see the talent. It's undisputable, but there's that one hole that he can't, I think he got more disciplined this year about not chasing those pitches, but he still did, just not at as much of a rate as he did before. I think probably they're going to let Schmidt and Fitz kind of duke it out for second base in spring training and see what happens. I don't see him going out and signing anybody. I don't want Ha-Sung Kim with a broken arm, broken shoulder, I'm not about it. That's a Farhan move. And we need to wipe the stink of Farhan off and get as far away from that as possible.
Right. The thing about Fitzgerald too, though, is the ceiling is high for this guy with stolen bases. He is fast. He hasn't figured out how to steal bases. Like he's running the bases all right, but he hasn't figured out how to steal bases, which is different than being fast, right? You could be fast but not know how to steal bases. So once he really figures that out and gets to see the pitchers a lot and understands their moves, I mean, this guy could steal 40, 50 bags, I think, if he's an everyday player pretty easily. And so if he hits 20 home runs and steals 40 or 50 bags for a second baseman, that's like all-star shit.
Yeah. He's probably the second fastest guy next to Grant McCray. I think McCray's probably got just a little more speed than Fitz, but that dude is fast. And he's big, which is surprising. He's got a little dude. So he's got some real speed in his legs. And it's just, he did have a little bit of a fall off towards the end, but when he went on that tear, when he hit 15 home runs over a pretty short stretch, I mean, and the power was legit. It wasn't like, oh, just drift one down the line and bang it off the bottom of the foul pole. Those were no doubters, every single one of them. So I like what I saw out of him. I think that with some extra practice, his infield work could get cleaned up. He did make some pretty sparkling plays at shortstop, a couple of 360 spinning, whatever, but it wasn't the norm for him. It was kind of like the highlight reel, right? And you need guys that every day are turning in that kind of thing. And if you remember Joe Panic before his back went bad, that guy was solid at second base, man. He didn't miss anything. So that's what you want, Left side defense is great. Right side defense needs to improve.
Yeah, definitely. What's up, Johnny T16? Good to see you out here. Hey, thank you guys all that have subscribed. If you haven't, please do. It's not the biggest number, but for us, it felt great to hit that 100. I know Glenn and Eric just hit 1,000, which is amazing. But yeah, man, appreciate y'all for doing this. It just gives us a little stoke. We were talking about it before we came on today, and we're like, should we wait till somebody is in the chat before we go live? Like, is that going to be our new thing? But no, I mean, we just love talking baseball and love seeing you guys contribute to these topics. It helps us talk even longer and also open our mind to some ideas like, Suzuki. I've been hearing that from a bunch of people. It's interesting. I'm not sure how much better Suzuki is than Yaz. He's probably an upgrade for sure. I don't know what it would take. Like, can we trade Casey Schmidt 1 for him? I don't think so. I think it would probably take Casey Schmidt and maybe Landon Roop or one of the young pitchers. So it'd be interesting. Always when it comes to trades, I've said this, it just depends on who you're getting for who you're giving. I mean, it's really obvious, but sometimes people don't put those into the equation. I see a lot of this on Twitter where people want to just give the other team all the guys we don't want for a guy we want. And it's never going to work like that. Why would these guys take people that we don't want, So,
and I think that, if we want to talk
Cole.
about trade chips that the Giants are holding, they're kind of in that boat that they've been in for a while now, where there's just not a lot in the way of guys they can trade that they're going to get a big return on their investment. I think the biggest place that they do have sort of a wealth of guys they could trade and get something of value is in the pitching. You've got Mason Black, you've got McDonald, you've got all these guys who show a lot of talent, a lot of potential that, everybody's always looking for pitchers, right? So that's where you're going to get your most value. There's other guys like Taylor Rogers. He's not worth a damn, and they're stuck with him for another year. How do you trade Taylor Rogers?
He's getting paid a lot too. He's going to be
a
hard.
lot of money. He's inheriting a huge salary, and the guy just was kind of a pile this year. So that's tough. But I do think they have a lot of young pitchers that have some value. Luciano, I don't know if he's got value anywhere. And, I hate to keep banging this drum, but if they were able to get somebody for Doval, because I think Doval's got some serious trade value, I would do it at this point, because we got Ryan Walker now, and he's proved that mentally he's there. And Doval seemed checked out this year, and it's like, you don't know what he's going to be next year. Whereas Ryan Walker, we can pretty much count on him being good,
Yeah, I mean, that's where I disagree. I think that we should keep Doval in hopes that he gets it back together, because he still hasn't hit the free agency, so we're not paying him a ton. To me, it makes so much sense to try to get rid of Hicks. I think if we get Burns, we got to keep Robbie Ray because he's a lefty, unless we're going to trade him and get another lefty. Like, we can't get rid of Harrison and Robbie Ray and have 5 or 6 right-handed starters. It's not how you go into Dodger Stadium. It's not how you go into a lot of places. So we need 1, 2, even 3 left-handed starters. So in my mind, Hicks is like a guy that we want to persuade to be the 8th inning guy, setup guy, get him out of the starting rotation. But I've already heard that that's not what he wants to do, and the Giants are committed to it. So they're going to start him as a starter, but probably by halfway through the year, he'll be burnt out and he'll go into the bullpen. That just doesn't seem like a good strategy for anyone. I think that makes Hicks bummed. That makes the fan base bummed. That makes it just, you want players to play where they're going to play. Like, there shouldn't be this like, well, you're great here, but let's try you over here. Cause you always wanted to play right field, but you're a catcher. Like, no, come on.
Yeah. And if they commit to Hicks as a starter, which is what it sounds like as of right now, then, they're going to have to commit to getting him into more conditioning and more strength training so that he doesn't get gassed with a month and a half left in the season. I'm fine with him starting if he can start all year, but if he comes unglued, then, what are we doing? I thought he'd be more successful as a bullpen guy. He's got closer quality stuff. He's got velocity, he's got good movement. So, he works better in my opinion there, but if this is the way they want to run, so be it. And then it's, what are we looking at? We're looking at Harrison. If Harrison can find his control and keep his velocity up and probably learn another pitch. We got Robbie Ray, who hopefully is going to come back better than he was. We got Logan, who we don't even have to talk about because he's going to be the workhorse of the rotation.
He gets no respect either. It's crazy.
And then Birdsong so far has seemed good, although, again, it's that thing where he can give you 5 innings, but we want guys that can give you 6 to 7 innings, and so we don't have to lean on the bullpen all the time to come in and pitch 4 innings of every game. It's just not right,
Well, there's 2 lefties that everybody's talking about, and neither one has pitched or played 1 inning, and that's Carson Wisenhunt and that's Eldridge.
Yep.
These guys have a lot of hype behind them. Eldridge, for good reason. The guy's been on fire, and he just, whether Farhan needed to do it to save his job or not, he flew through single A, double A, ended up at Sacramento AAA for the last week. And I think he played, either fall or winter ball and they were saying he was getting tired because he was doing so much, but he's got some upside. I just think we need to like kind of pump the brakes a little. And then Wisenhunt is a lefty. So if he's as good as Birdsong or any of these other young guys, you can plug him in if we lose a Robbie Ray or if Harrison gets traded or any of these things. There's a lot of I think we have a lot of options for starting pitching because we have a lot of dudes that are kind of in that same package. And that's why I want to get Corbin Burns so soon, because then, Posey can be like, we're going to keep Roop, we're going to get rid of Birdsong or whatever they're going to do and start packaging some guys to trade for maybe a bat, because you don't trade a bat for a bat or a pitcher for a pitcher. You trade some pitching for some hitting or vice versa. I think, it doesn't make sense to trade a pitcher for a pitcher.
Yeah.
So it would be great to just be like, okay, let's see Tristan Beck, Landon Roop, and whoever else, 3 guys that aren't going to make the squad, and they're probably going to be in sack forever. It's called the Forever Ram in skateboarding. You guys are going to get traded, and we're going to bring over this one. I don't think we can trade with the Padres, but Luis Reyes keeps coming up in my mind as the perfect designated hitter or first base replacement or something. He's not that great at defense, and I guess he's not that fast, but man, he never strikes out and he hits for average. I just think he's going to be a dude that can be a run producer, and that will be huge for the squad. But I don't know.
One thing is that San Diego does need pitching. You know that because they got Musgrove, they got King, they got Cease.
Yeah, but they're getting rid of dudes because of their payroll.
They're dumping payroll, right?
But you don't trade within the same division, right?
I know you're not supposed to, but for Luis Arias, if you got a shot at making that, you got to try.
But would the Padres trade him within the division? That's what I'm saying. If they value these guys like a Dylan Cease, they got to get rid of him because of the money, but they don't need to get rid of him in their own division.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I just think with the amount of pitching the Giants have, that's where the trade leverage comes from. You got Keaton Wynn, you got Tristan Beck. You got guys that can pitch at the major league level with some quality. And if they're not an absolute rotation piece, they should be shopped around. I really love both those guys, but it's like sometimes you got to go out and get what you need, and guys have to move, and that's just it.
I agree with George on that. I think a lot of these guys have a lot of talent, but they do only have 2 pitches, and they need that third pitch. That was super clear with, I think, Birdsong. He had a great, fastball and a secondary pitch, but he didn't have the third pitch. And so people start seeing what you do, and they start sitting on the one pitch, and then that changes the whole dynamic. But the good thing about the Giants is they have always been great at instructing young pitching. They've always gotten the best. I mean, look at Drew Smiley when he came over. Look at Rodon. Look at these guys that came through, and Gosman. They weren't that great. And then all of a sudden we gave them something that kind of clicked, and it bumped them up a little bit. I mean, we have a lot of great pitching history here in the last decade or so. So that's where the promise is for me. Seeing a Wisenhunt that needs some help, we're the team that's going to help him. So I think we can escalate his game. Again, in the past, we've rushed everyone. In the future, I hope that that's not the case. And I know everyone's super horny for Eldridge, but let's just let him beat up AAA before we let him come up. I think it's important. I think he's not the greatest defender at first base. He was a pitcher his whole life. Let's let him get some reps at first base and learn cutoff and all the bunting and all the different things that first base, people think you just throw the shittiest guy at first base, but there is some strategy and some different things that go into play there.
Yeah, there's some legit strategy. And as we've seen over and over across baseball for forever, is that a first baseman can make one mistake and it can change the trajectory of an entire game, of a series, of a season even, I mean, it's important that that guy be polished. And once again, you know, the Giants need to be really careful about bringing him up too soon, sending him back, bringing him up, sending him back, and you get into this rotating door to Sacramento, and look at how it's worked out. I mean, like Matos got screwed up by that, in my opinion. Um, Luciano may have been a victim of that. Okay. And Ramos, until they finally gave him the job because Lee got hurt, Ramos was suffering from that same thing. I'm here for a week, I'm back in sack. I'm here for a week, I'm back in sack. I get 6 at bats, 9 at bats. Like, how, you know, either you're ready or you're not. And the problem was they were just bringing these guys up to give them a test drive. And I think that was a lot of Farhan bullshit that is going to be gone. I think that Bob Melvin's going to be able to manage the way he wants to manage. He's going to be able to pick the lineups he wants to pick with Buster's help. I think that it's going to dramatically change the dynamic of how they handle prospects, young talent, who they play, who they keep, who they get rid of. I mean, I think it's really going to change. And I'm going to be so happy if it's not spreadsheet AI driven nonsense from an iPad being passed around the dugout. You know, just ugh.
I think, I mean, that's what we were all so excited about when they signed Adames, is it was just such a fresh feeling. It felt so different than the last 4 or 5 years, and how the structure and just how that dynamic was. Like, they kept kind of repeating themselves with the type of things they were doing. Those weren't working, and we wanted something new. This felt like that. The word patience has been going around a lot. We need patience, you know. It's like Christmas is here. I've already checked out for a week. Like, I'm not going to work for a week. I'm not saying that Buster has done the same, but he's got a family and all that stuff. And people need to travel and get together with their families. So it could be done until after Christmas, or even after New Year's. But I just think we have to have a little patience and just be careful when we want to just throw in the towel and just be angry about things that haven't happened yet, because it's not opening day. It's not even spring training. So there is time for a lot of things to happen, and we don't know what those things could be. We're hoping Corbin Burns and more, but we do have to just have patience and see, you know.
Well, here's one little shot in the arm for anybody who's kind of thinking despair wise. And I know, like, I get seasonal affect disorder and I hate the holidays and all that, you know. However, Sports Illustrated article dated yesterday predicting Burns signs with the Giants. Now, you can take that with a grain of salt because it's Sports Illustrated, but hey, you know, the more we hear like that, the more likely that it is going to happen. So,
well, that's the problem, right? Is everyone's predicting that the Giants are going to get him. And then we're hearing that Corbin wants to play here. So the frustration is, then why? Why hasn't it happened?
Yep.
And there's just one word. It's BORAS. Yep. BORAS is wanting to add an extra year. He's wanting to add 10 million. He's wanting to add an opt-out. He's wanting to be that guy that's making it trickier than it needs to be. And he's just, you know, holding court, as you say. Last year, we heard we were going to get Chapman forever, and then we finally did get him.
Yep.
So we're not out of this. And as I look at the other people that I'm hearing are in contention, I'm seeing them making moves, which means that, to me, that seems like they're kind of like out of it. And the Blue Jays don't seem like they're the team that wants to spend a lot of money. And they also don't seem like a destination people necessarily have when they think of playing baseball. So those things are going to be difficult. If you're having discussions with Vladimir Guerrero that aren't going well, the future looks grim. So you don't want to commit to 8 years with the star player on his way out. When you look at the Giants and you see they've got a horse as this guy that's thrown 200 innings every year, and they've got this farm that's producing all these young guys. They got a legend that just became the POBO that signed a guy you used to play with in Milwaukee as Adames. I mean, the writing's all over the place. Where do I see any stop signs? It just said, let's go. And so, and also, why would Adamas publicly say I called him and it was a good conversation? Unless he thought, like, you don't say those kind of things, do you? Like,
you don't put that out. It puts your reputation on the line a little bit and your credibility on the line a little bit. I mean, not that it matters. Adamas is an all-star, shortstop, and he's had a great career so far, and it's going to continue. So it's not like he has to worry about what people say on the internet, right? I think the reason why Boras continues the way that he continues is he makes 5%, okay, on these contracts these guys sign, but he has a net worth of $450 million. So he's pretty good at squeezing the blood out of the turnip, right? I mean, he's managed to get away with it. He's managed to do this. And so teams kind of play ball with him a little. I think they've gotten a little bit wiser to it. I think that teams drop out of the running when they see the price tag and the number of years ago, nah, it's not the direction we want to take our team in. A top-notch starting pitcher, however, I think, you're always going to have more people listening on him because, those guys don't come around that often as free agents, right?
Yeah, and you also have to look at like the next couple of years, right? You already are seeing like, well, who's available next year? And like, is, that year that Trey Turner was shortstop, there was a pretty big year for shortstops, and that was a big deal to try to get a guy that year. And I think that's why the Giants overpaid for Correa until they didn't. But if there's a guy like Vladdy that's coming next year, maybe you're like, well, I don't need to get a mediocre first baseman because I'm going to go all in on him. Right. But you never know what these guys are thinking. They talk about like cutting back the salaries and all that stuff, but it all could be smoke and mirrors. It's all hearsay. Nobody's in the room with them. We don't know exactly what's going on. I do know that Buster Posey's a winner, and I do know that he wants to win now, and I do know that he has pride. So I do have faith in him and his direction in whatever he decides to do. I think he's going to be persuasive with the ownership in times that he really needs to. Like, hey, this is a good opportunity. Let's throw in a little more money than we want to and get this guy. I think those conversations are going to happen. But again, when you're spending all this type of money and it's not just one owner, it's an ownership group, it takes a little bit of time. And then you're also seeing like, well, there's a few options, but as those options dissipate, the one that you really want is clearly still there. Grab it.
Yep. And I do think that, the upside of Posey being in charge now is that I think there's going to be return to the successful Giants formula of the past, which is having a strong foundational team, everyday players, and then going back to where, we don't have to be extremely active and spend billions in the offseason because we're going to pick up that one key piece at the trade deadline that's going to put us over the finish line, right? They did that with Cody Ross. They did that with Marco Scutaro. But the team that they already had on a daily basis was performing, You didn't have to worry about it. Farhan decimated this squad. And so, there has to be a little bit of a rebuild. I think that the Adames signing is a great pillar of that. I think the Chapman signing, although a lot of people think it was too long and too much money, I like the Chapman signing a lot because I feel like he's a real team guy. He's a real leader. That's important, So you got the Lee contract that's long, and now you're starting to look at, we got these pieces. We need to fill in the gaps, and maybe the strategy for first base is, hey, we go with Wade, maybe with Wilmer, and we go 2/3 of the way into the season. And if Eldridge seems like he's truly ready down at AAA, you bring him up, right? And sink or swim, right? Then you know where you sit with Vladdy next year. If Eldridge turns out to be a dud, which we hope that's not the case, then Vladdy's going to be a free agent. And the competition to get him is going to be steep. But hey, at least you know what you're doing, right?
And all the talk about Eldridge, it's like that's a great problem to have. Sure. If one of those guys has to play DH, fine. But you don't don't pass on these players because you already have someone that might fill that position. It's like I'd be all in on Vladdy if I could, if we can afford him, if the ownership's into spending, imagine that. That would be huge.
Yep.
Like that's the kind of piece that we need in our puzzle.
Yep.
So,
and he's young enough that you can throw 7 to 8 years at him. I mean,
right.
he's not like a 32-year-old, right? So, yeah, I mean, it would be a no-brainer to try to get him if Eldridge isn't the guy. If he doesn't work out, if Eldridge comes up and he's just on fire and he stays that way, then yeah, let Vladdy go sign with wherever he's going to go.
Yeah. Well, George, Rick, anybody else in here? Guess what time it is? It's time to shit on Farhan. Woo! All right, everybody, listen. Farhan came out last week and did a little interview, and he tried to shit on Will Clark. Nah, senor. Double deuce, that's forever. Will Clark is the thrill. Don't talk about Will unless you want to be in the same room and go face to face, because I don't like this he said, she said, hearsay crap. Will the thrills forever, and Farhan, you've gone too far on.
I'm interested to see if Will's gonna give us a little reaction on Deuce's Wild to that or something.
I hope so, because that was
Holy
crazy.
shit. Yeah, I don't know where Farhan. I don't know if it's sour grapes for getting fired or what, but like Will Clark is not the guy you want to paint a target on, man.
Especially when he's got a weekly show that he does under the influence.
Right. Yeah, him and Bernsey are. I don't know what Bernsy's hopped up on, but Will's definitely hitting either the bourbon or something's going on there, and he's already going to call it like he sees it, but it's even a little more authentic when he's got a little bit of a buzz on. And you know what? He can do whatever the fuck he wants because he's Will Clark.
That's right. That is right. And that was time to shit on Farhan, our new segment that we're going to try to do it every episode if we can.
Yeah. He gave us another opening. So it's amazing. He's not even with the team anymore. And yet it's just the echo is still there. So.
Well, George, I don't know. Are you a huge Giants fan? Or are you on the fence as being a Giants fan? Are you one of those guys that loves them so much that it just angers you every minute that they don't make the move that you want? Or are you just kind of like, I like other teams and I like beating up on the Giants? What kind of fan are you? What's your history here? Because I don't know yet, but I like seeing all your opinions and stuff. We'd say the lineup is not great. I would say at the very least, it's average, because we are a 500 squad every year. We need to do better, 100%. But not trading for Tucker, I don't think that's the top priority. I think he's looking at starting pitching. I would have loved to get Tucker. I think that the Giants could have packaged something that was equivalent to that, except for everyone on the broadcast is saying they couldn't. So that's all I know, is that apparently the Giants don't have the farm to offer teams for those kind of packages, where the Padres and the Dodgers and even the Cubs have these farm systems that just keep pumping out guys that people really want. We have Eldridge. We're not going to trade Eldridge. So the phone conversation starts there and stops there. People are like, okay, how about Eldridge? And they're like, no, he's untouchable. Okay, well, we'll talk to someone else. I'm pretty sure that's how that went.
Yeah, and there's is it Crawford? There's another kid that's coming up. He's down in the bottom of the thing right now, but everybody's really high on him too. So, yeah, it's like the Giants have pieces to trade, but if it's not what other people want and you're not getting back what you want in return, and you're kind of stuck, you know. And I'm hoping that with Buster running things now, that they're going to really take a hard look at the farm system and the drafting, and get back to drafting the type of guys like Buster that they brought in before, that were just no doubters when they hit the minor leagues. They were on the fast track to the majors, and they stuck, you know. So
Well, you just touched a nerve there, George, because Murphy and Casali are two of Christian's biggest pet peeves. You have entered the right chat, my friend. Nobody in here wanted to see Casali or Murphy in a Giants uniform. And some would even argue that Casali was a little better on the eyes because you didn't have to pay him what you're paying Murphy.
right.
But time will tell, right? We got some Mariners fans saying they liked Murphy. I don't know. As a backup catcher, I'm not that worried about it. But when they do put the, extra zeros into the contract, and that takes away from some of these other guys, that's an issue. Definitely.
Yeah. I got to disagree on Bart, though. I'm glad that Bart left. Now, who's to blame for Bart underperforming? Probably the organization and not Joey Bart himself, right? Because as soon as he got to Pittsburgh, it's a little better. I think he just had a chip on his shoulder, and he was just sick of the bullshit in San Francisco. I mean, he got sent up and down a bunch too, right? And then look at what happened. Maybe he's an attitude guy. He never signed an autograph for you. Is that right, Schmitty?
That's right.
Fucker.
And I told I forget who I told, but earlier today, hopefully my wife's not watching. I said I'm buying a Jung-Hoo Lee card every day until Burns signs. I'm gonna buy a new Jung-Hoo Lee card. I'm trying to get the rainbow for every set he's been in, which is like, I think it's like 20 different cards, different colors of the same card. I'm just losing my mind. I'm going on eBay and I'm just like, okay, I'll buy the blue one today. Tomorrow I'll get the orange one. Next week, black one. So I got a binder full of Jung-Hoo Lee, and it's kind of hurting people's Christmas presents. But it's been fun. I'm crazy though. Like, seriously, I think after Christmas, after New Year's, the first 2 weeks of January, I think those are the hardest weeks of the whole year for me.
Yeah.
Once the holidays are over, there's not much to look forward to. And this baseball huge window, which is such an obvious problem. Can they just make the window shorter and let's make all the deals happen like the NFL and NBA? We keep saying it over and over. It needs to happen. But man, January gets cold and it's not a lot going on. It gets dark early. There's a lot of, so I need some hype. So maybe it's a good thing that we don't get Burns till January, because that'll ignite a little fire and maybe a couple moves. And then all of a sudden spring training's here and we can go back to smiling.
Yeah, fill that gap a little bit, to be like, getting through the no baseball time is just rough. Rough.
The 49ers are horrid. We already saw that. The Warriors have been looking kind of like, Jesus, they haven't looked great. The team that everybody's talking about is Glenn's San Jose Sharks.
Oh,
this kid, Celebrini, man, he's going to be rookie of the year. He's fuego. So if you're in the Bay Area, you might want to tune into the Sharks if you're having some baseball deprivation and just need your sports. I don't know what you do. Today over at Chase, they had the women's NBA like inaugural party with DJ Umami and all kinds of jerseys, and just start hyping up the season ticket purchase and stuff. So there is a little action going on here in Mission Bay, but it's not really firing until Oracle opens and you see all those black and orange jerseys and everybody walking around with their like, they look like they're in Alaska. They got all the fucking gear and they're ready for, they're the candlestick troopers that are still doing it. It's like night games. Yeah, they get cold, Eric, but we're gamers out here, man. We just want our baseball. So we're down. We do what we got to do to get there.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to check in on the Sharks a little bit. I went to a bunch of the Sharks games when they played at the Cow Palace before they got the arena built in San Jose. And live hockey's insane, but it ruins it on TV after that. Once you've been, like, I was sitting center ice 5 to 10 rows up at Cow Palace. It was incredible.
Oh, and you don't get better than Cow Palace. It's like the old school. It's just like, oh, it's so good there.
1976 World Skateboarding Championships.
Evil Knievel.
They had rodeo. I went to motocross in there. By the third heat of the motocross, you couldn't breathe anymore because of all the exhaust. I mean, the Cow Palace is a classic. And the only thing I've ever seen in the Sharks Arena down in San Jose is Radiohead. Never been to a hockey game there, so I have to check in on that.
I saw Ozzy and Van Halen there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that I've seen some Shark games down there though. It's pretty cool, man. I honestly, the thing that's pretty rad for us is the train's right across the street, so we can just jump on the train. It goes all the way, drops you off right at the Shark Tank.
Train.
Yeah, and there's going down, you can take the one that only stops at 3 places. Whoa, look at that. Boom, boom, boom.
Freaky. Yeah, me and my dad used to take Caltrain up to go to ball games, so I love that shit. Anyways, I don't know what else is really going on. It's kind of been slow and quiet, and
It was the night before Burns and all through the house.
Yeah, it's Corbin Burns watch.
So you're kind of like a anti-Christmas guy. You're not really into. Are you bah humbug or?
Yeah. I mean, mostly just because it's like my dad passed away 2 days after Christmas last year, so this year's kind of a bah humbug deal. Not like I'm walking around cursing or anything, but just doesn't feel like there's much to celebrate or be excited about.
Understood. Have it in the past? Have you been festive though? Like, do you guys like to watch movies or look at lights or any of that stuff?
Not too much. Basically, just stay home, stay cozy, and eat food and watch movies, and it's just kind of I like it mellow. When I was a kid, it's all about the excitement and craziness and all that. And man, you get to be almost 60 years old. It's like, I just want a nice quiet holiday. I don't want to have to run around in the chaos trying to shop, and people are stressed, man. I went to Costco the other day. It's just crazy. Just crazy. The parking lot's just a clusterfuck and gridlock. People are honking and laying on their horns and screaming and yelling. It's like, okay, you're just making it worse, man. It's already bad. Like, why, So,
I see that all the time. The road rage is insanity.
Yeah.
I've been watching this show. We're halfway through it. There's only 6 episodes. It's called Black Doves. It's on Netflix. Okay. It's a spy thing. It's pretty. I like it a lot. I'm always open for suggestions. If anybody's out there, we love watching like the TV miniseries type stuff or a good movie. So anything that's out there that you guys are fired up, please send me. I'm always down to be like, oh my God, you got the documentaries, especially if there's good documentaries out there. We love to watch those. But yeah, it's just kind of killing time till baseball always. And right now it's just killing time till I wake up to hit that. That first thing I do in every morning is I reach down, I grab my phone, I hit tap it so it comes on and say, is there an alert? Because I only have one alert, and that's MLB. So it's like, did the Giants make the nope. Okay, time to go get coffee. We'll get through this day.
I have 0 notifications turned on. So what I do is the old get up, get the coffee. Once I got the coffee, it's the Wordle and connections, and then it's MLB trade rumors after that.
See, I'm trade rumors before coffee, before Wordle. I'm just like, and then I walk down, get the coffee, and then once I get coffee, I can do Wordle because my brain can't function until I have at least one sip.
Yeah, no, I got to get like about a half a pint in me, and then it's funny. The Wordle and connections actually kind of like mellows me out and gets my brain waves to a nice balanced thing. So if I get on MLB trade rumors and there's some horrendous news on there or no news, at least I don't go too low, right? Morkatna,
you showed up late. We're about to sign off. Hand it over to the big dogs over at Giant Sports Talk Network. We got Glenn about 3 stories up. I might just go up and pound on his door during the show and come in like a rock star. You never know what I'm gonna do. But actually, I got to get my wife's out at a party, and I have a small window to wrap all the gifts. So I'm like, let's get this going.
Go get on it.
Keep an eye out though. We're not on we don't have a rhythm yet. We don't have like every Sunday or every other day or any of that stuff. We're trying to find it, and it'll be easier after the holidays. But please subscribe, because we always put it up early enough to let you know, like 12 hours later we'll be on, or whatever it is. We're not going to do like we're on now type stuff, because we definitely appreciate y'all and we want to see you in here. And tell a friend, hit subscribe if you haven't, but like, let's grow together and keep this thing going. Really like seeing like more Katna, Johnny T16. You guys are pretty regular. George, I think this might have been your first appearance, and I haven't seen you before, but I loved your contributions. Rick Brown, you're always welcome back, guys. Please show up and help make the show grow.
Yeah, thanks for helping us hit the century mark, each and every one of you. And
psyched on that.
Once the season gets going, we get into spring training, I think we'll probably get into a little bit more of a regular schedule we can put out there, and then you guys won't be constantly searching for us. You'll just know. And hit us up, follow us on Instagram. We usually post up some stories and stuff about when we're going to be on. We'll announce when we're on live, and we got a little bit of a page going over there. It hasn't been updated in the too recent past, but it starts to fire, and we got a fun thing over there called the Skaters on Baseball Dispatch, and it's a little news blurb that we put out, and it's a little bit of humor, a little bit of parody, and a little bit of serious news as well. So
yeah, and Kristen does the graphics, and don't tell anybody, but I just gave him the keys to a graphic design program, so we might have a new intro by opening day. You just never know, kids. We're always fucking around with things and trying out new shit. So if you got suggestions or ideas or any critique, we're open to all of it. Otherwise, just stay safe out there. The holidays can be tricky. Hold on to your loved ones, and don't drink and drive.
Yep. Have a great holiday, everybody.
And Godspeed for Mr. 24, the greatest base stealer to ever do it. I was so blessed that I went to the Reggie Jackson softball game at the Oakland Coliseum, which was the last thing that's happened there, because it was after the baseball, and Ricky was there. And man, I swear to God, I just kind of tripped out when this all went down. I was like, man, if you had told me then that like he'd be gone now, wow, life is just so, it's uncertain. It's a precious thing. So don't take it for granted. Yeah, maybe we'll see you over at Eric and Glenn's if you guys are heading over that way. I'll probably check in after I get these gifts wrapped and see if I can rattle some cages. I always like Eric complaining about how cold it is in San Francisco. So we'll see what we could do. Thanks again, guys. Appreciate y'all. And we are...
Thanks for listening to this episode of Skaters on Baseball. If you liked what you heard, please spread the word, give us a good review, or hell, blow us up on your social media if you're down. Follow us at Skates on Base on Instagram for baseball news and other fun stuff. We love comments and listener participation, so bring it with an audio clip or an email. You can email us at skatersonbase@gmail.com. We're everywhere you get your podcasts, and we'll be here all season long.
Let's go, San Francisco. Let's go, Giants.
I'm excited to give everything that I have for these next 6 seasons and, see where it takes us.
Adios, Pelota!
See you soon. Thank you.
And I am forever a Giant.
Sweet.